My best friend got into trouble at work, so I went to back her up. I'm her sister-in-law. If there's anything, talk to me directly. But before I could even finish introducing myself, a large hand pressed heavily against my head. At the same time, her brother's cool, detached voice sounded slowly beside my ear. I heard you're my wifey. Do you want me to make it official for you? It was 10 o'clock at night. I had just finished working overtime when I received a call from Jane Gu. Salma, I messed everything up. What should I do? She was sobbing on the other end, and I was speechless. Aren't you working in your own family's company? Even if something goes wrong, who could really blame you? But I'm scared Grandpa will find out. Then he won't let me go abroad. Jane cried even harder. She was a so-called wealthy heiress, yet life wasn't as free and easy as outsiders imagined. Her boyfriend was French, and she had always dreamed of settling in France. But her grandfather had vehemently refused. In the end, they compromised. Jane had to accomplish something at home before she could leave. He even promised to hand over the family's French branch for her to manage. Clearly, he still doted on her. What should I do, Salma? And said she's going to tell Grandpa about my mistake tomorrow. Jane was still sobbing. And was her direct superior, as well as the granddaughter-in-law favored by the Gu family's patriarch. This company had been co-founded by her grandfather and aunts, so naturally the children of both families had grown up together. Listening to Jane's crying, I steeled myself. Are you at the office? I'll come find you. When she confirmed, I quickly flagged down a taxi. The moment I got in, regret swept over me, but I had already promised her. I had no choice but to ask, is your brother at the company? I tried to sound calm, but the way my manicured nails tapped nervously betrayed me. Jane paused, then said, no. Relieved, I exhaled, yet for some reason felt an odd sense of loss. Still, I forced myself to focus. Tell me clearly, what exactly happened? From her, I pieced together the whole story. Jane had been responsible for negotiating a project with another company. She had been working nonstop for more than 10 days. Thankfully, the deal had finally been settled yesterday, and she had reported everything to Anne and told her they would sign the contract together the next day. But the entire day, Anne was nowhere to be found. With no choice, Jane went alone, smiling, drinking, doing whatever it took, until she got the contract signed. But upon returning, she discovered the price had been written incorrectly, causing the company to lose over 800,000 yuan. When Anne found out, she didn't scold much. She merely sighed faintly. Didn't I tell you to wait for me? Why did you go alone, and make such a mistake? Jane explained that she had checked the documents the night before and found no issues. She had no idea how the error happened. And cut her off, eyes full of disappointment. Jane, I'm far too disappointed in you. Then she dismissed her. That was when Jane came crying to me. How could there be so many coincidences? My first thought was that this was Anne's doing. Yet Anne and Jane had no direct conflict of interest. I didn't dwell on it. Don't worry. Wait for me, I'm coming now. When I arrived downstairs at Jane's company, she was already waiting, looking like she was about to burst into tears again. What should I do, Salma? Don't worry. Just take me up with you. I tried to look composed, though my heart was pounding. We stepped into Anne's office. She was on the phone. With just a glance, she signaled us to stay silent. The aura I had worked up instantly deflated. Yes, thank you, Mr. Liu, for understanding. Tomorrow, I'll bring someone to re-sign the contract and apologize in person, Anne said before hanging up. Then she turned toward Jane. Why are you back again? Jane's face was mournful. And, I really know I was wrong. Please don't tell Grandpa. Anne frowned and was about to respond, when I stepped forward. I'm her sister-in-law. Whatever the matter is, you can deal with me. But before I could finish my declaration, a big hand pressed heavily on my head once again. At the same time, Jane's brother's cool voice rang beside my ear. I heard you're my wifey. Do you want me to make it official? I froze, then stiffly turned my head, only to see Jason Gu. He gave a cold, mocking laugh and looked toward Jane. Even someone like this you dare call for help? You really are hopeless. Jane cast me a resentful glance, as if blaming me for coming up with such a useless idea. And, however, ignored our little scene. Her eyes were fixed only on Jason. Jason, why are you here so late? She asked with obvious concern. Jason answered flatly, I heard Jane got into trouble, so I came to take a look. And smiled lightly. It's fine. I've already handled it. Don't worry, I won't tell Grandpa. It was just to scare you a little, so you'll remember this lesson. Jane quickly stammered out thanks. Thank you, Anne. Jason glanced at them, then finally let his gaze fall on me. But after only a brief look, he withdrew it again. Since it's settled, let's all go home. No, I cut in. Everyone turned to look at me. This matter clearly shows someone wanted to frame Jane. She said she had checked the contract the night before, How could it suddenly be wrong? And wasn't someone supposed to accompany her to sign it? How did they vanish all of a sudden? Silence fell over the room. I hadn't finished speaking when Jason suddenly came over, clamped a hand over my mouth, and, in a most ungraceful manner, tucked me under his arm and carried me out. "It's late. Go home early," he said simply. He shoved me into the back seat of his car, then climbed in himself. "Jane was framed," I insisted. "I know," Jason replied quickly. I tried to press further, but he interrupted me. "I already know the truth. I'll take care of it. I won't let Jane suffer injustice." He fixed his eyes on me, gaze deep and unwavering. "Trust me, will you?" Against my will, I found myself nodding. The atmosphere in the car suddenly turned unbearably awkward. I wanted to run. My hand reached for the door handle, but he leaned in, seizing the hand I was about to use to escape. "Trying to run again?" His voice was low, steady. "What exactly are you pretending not to understand, Miss Gu?" I don't know what you mean." I could only feign ignorance. "Salma." He called my name, gazing at me. The distance was far too close, I could even feel the warmth of his breath against my skin. I turned my head away, trying to avoid his eyes. Yet he refused to let me escape. His hand reached out, firmly grasping my chin, forcing me to face him. "Jason, did you eat garlic?" I stammered out the absurd question, just to break the tension. His face immediately flushed crimson. He glared at me. For a long while, he struggled for words, then finally let me go, pulling back to create distance. "I never eat garlic," he muttered defensively. Relieved, I knew I had successfully diverted the conversation. I quickly reached for the car door. "If there's nothing else, I'll leave first." But before I could get out, Jason's long arm shot out, dragging me back into the seat. He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "Where do you live? I'll take you home." "I can grab a cab myself," I said quickly. He frowned. "You're a girl. It's not safe to be out alone this late." I met his eyes calmly. "Mr. Gu, I've been on my own all these years." He looked away, silent. After a long pause, his voice came again, softer this time. "But what if I insist on sending you back?" Jason and I had once been in a relationship, a real one, acknowledged openly by both sides. He was the eldest and most outstanding child of the Gu and families. Back then, he had earned admission to S University. Later, and Jane followed his path, entering S University as well. Jane and I were roommates. During college, she was remarkably low-key. I never even imagined she was a wealthy heiress. So when I first met her brother, I thought of him only as an ordinary person, well, perhaps an extraordinary one, but nothing more. Through Jane's introduction, Jason and I got to know each other, and soon, we were together. Nothing earth-shattering had happened, it was simply because I was bold, shameless even. From the very first glance, I had been drawn to him. "Jane, look, that guy is so handsome." That was on our very first day reporting to the university. Our two other roommates were accompanied by their parents, who, after helping them settle in, had taken them out for a meal. Jane and I, the only ones without parents present, naturally stuck together. As we walked downstairs, I spotted Jason in the crowd at once, and the words slipped out of my mouth. Jane smiled at me. "How about I go ask for his contact information for you?" she teased. I was shocked. It was our first day meeting, and Jane was already willing to do this for me. I was about to refuse, but she had already darted off. The two of them stood at a distance, chatting and smiling. From time to time, both of them glanced in my direction. And I couldn't help but notice the tips of Jason's ears, glowing red. Jane waved for me to come over. I walked toward them. "Brother, this is Salma, my roommate," Jane said. "Salma, this is Jason, my brother." I froze, utterly mortified. Jane grabbed our hands, pressing them together. "Shake hands. Get to know each other." The warmth of his palm spread across mine. I lifted my gaze, meeting Jason's eyes. The very instant our eyes met, he quickly turned his face away, embarrassed. Realizing he was shy, my own awkwardness melted into excitement. "You're really handsome, big brother. Can I have your number?" I asked directly, without a shred of shame. He looked startled, stammered a soft "ah," and pulled out his phone. Just like that, we exchanged contacts. When I confirmed that Jane wasn't opposed to my being close with her brother, I began my full-on pursuit of Jason. It took many forms, bumping into him in the cafeteria, on the sports field, at the library, at the internet cafe. And when I had no classes, I would sneak into his lectures. Once, when he asked why I was there, I gave the noble excuse, previewing the material. He chuckled, his tone tinged with amusement. "Previewing classes for juniors when you're only a freshman?" I stared into his eyes without flinching. Why not? He could do nothing to stop me, and so, reluctantly, let me tag along. Still, his attitude toward me remained lukewarm. He already treats you better than most people, Jane told me. I didn't believe her, convinced she was only trying to comfort me. Our first real breakthrough came at his basketball game. Jason was something of a campus star, excellent grades, handsome, athletic, and even musically talented. He was practically the male lead of a campus romance novel. Naturally, the stands were filled with girls cheering for him. How can I make myself stand out? How can I make him notice me? I asked Jane. She thought for a long time, then fiddled with her phone. Leave it to me. Soon after, a delivery arrived. Jane walked over, holding a package. She opened it to reveal a loudspeaker. Normally, this kind of loudspeaker was used to hawk vegetables, eggplants, 3 yuan a kilo. String beans, 5 yuan. With solemn seriousness, Jane said, use this to cheer for my brother. He'll definitely notice you. I lowered my head, seriously weighing the possibility. Jane burst out laughing. You're actually considering it. But when the day of the game arrived, there I was, holding that ridiculous loudspeaker in the stands. Only then did Jane realize the gravity of her suggestion. She twitched her lips, inching her body away from me, desperate to avoid association. The game began. Jason. Go, Jason. The cheers from the stands were loud, but all in female voices, blending together into one indistinguishable chorus. I didn't want to be drowned out. So I switched on the loudspeaker, drew in a deep breath, and shouted with all my might, Jason. Go, Jason. The moment the words echoed across the court, the entire gymnasium went silent. Even the players paused mid-step. Every gaze turned toward me. But instead of shrinking back, I raised the loudspeaker again and shouted once more, Jason. Go, Jason. From that day on, whenever people saw me, they whispered to each other, that's the girl, the one who cheered for Jason with the loudspeaker in the gym. At last, my name could be mentioned alongside his. But then, Jason began to avoid me. I asked Jane to probe subtly, but even she could learn nothing. Afterward, whenever I arranged another chance encounter, Jason would bolt the instant he saw me. I grew discouraged, while Jane was at a loss. She had genuinely hoped I could end up with her brother, but given the circumstances, it seemed nearly impossible. One day, when I had no classes, I normally would have snuck into Jason's lecture. But this time, I didn't. Instead, I waited outside his classroom door. When class ended, one of his friends spotted me. He punched Jason lightly in the chest and teased, your little girlfriend came looking for you again. Jason frowned, his expression showing both impatience and faint disgust. Don't talk nonsense. I lowered my head, unwilling to probe further into the look in his eyes. His friends drifted away, leaving only the two of us standing in the hallway. Jason, let's talk properly, I said. He turned his head aside, avoiding me. After a long silence, he said nothing at all, just walked away. At the end of the corridor stood Anne. She looked at me with an assessing, mocking gaze before turning to catch up with Jason's steps. From that moment on, I began to give up on him. A twisted melon will never be sweet, I knew that truth well. I started avoiding Jason intentionally, while Jane quietly observed my reaction. She said nothing. I drifted in a haze of gloom for a long time. Unable to stand seeing me like that, Jane gathered some classmates and dragged me out to have fun. We went hiking and took lots of photos. That day, I wore a mint green dress, the very one Jason once praised me in, saying it looked beautiful on me. I posted those photos on my social media, including a few group shots. No sooner had I uploaded them than I received a notification, a like. From Jason. I didn't know what to make of it. All I felt was a heavy sadness pressing down on my chest. Quietly, I deleted the post. When Jane came to find me later, I put on my usual mask of indifference. My phone rang. Jane answered, it was Jason. She glanced at me but didn't leave the room, taking the call right in front of me. Though she hadn't turned on speaker mode, we were close enough that I could hear every word. Did Salma block me? Jason's voice came through, his very first question. Jane froze. What? Her post disappeared, he said. Jane didn't answer, only cast me a cautious glance. I smiled at her as if nothing were wrong, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. She smiled back, then walked away with the phone in hand. Silently, I pulled out my own phone and scrolled through my contacts, over and over. Jason clearly cared. Yet he was avoiding me. He didn't like me. A tangle of chaotic thoughts wrestled in my head, until I reached a conclusion, I liked Jason. But I refused to keep degrading myself as a lovesick fool. 2 weeks later, Jason finally sought me out for the first time. He asked me to meet him at a cafe near the university. It was a high-end place, the kind students rarely entered. Naturally, I assumed he didn't want anyone to see us together. That made me unhappy, but I went anyway. Because, as I'd said before, I liked him. I spent half the day in the dorm getting ready, but in the end, I chose the mint green dress again, the one he said looked good on me. When I arrived and sat down, I crossed my arms over my chest and stared at him without a word. Jason looked at me for a long while. Just as he was about to speak, I cut him off. I came here for one reason, to ask you one question. Do you like me or not? Jason froze. Salma, it's not that I don't like you. But back then, His expression told me he was about to make excuses, to dredge up the past. I didn't want to hear it. I interrupted again. Yes or no, Jason? Do you like me or not? He fell silent for a while, then called my name again. Salma. But before he could finish, I stood up, grabbed my bag, and turned to leave. Behind me, Jason rushed out after me. On the street, he caught my hand. I like you, Salma. Then why? I wanted to press him further. But Jason didn't give me the chance. He leaned down and kissed me. From that day on, our relationship was official. We even announced it publicly on social media. Our feelings were real, and everything between us went well, except for one flaw. Because of what happened at the cafe, we never truly had the chance to understand each other on a deeper level. And in the end, that was why we broke apart, parting on bad terms. I even spat harsh words at him, swearing I would never appear before him again. Now, sitting in the car beside him, I gave him no answer. He had already slid into the driver's seat and started the navigation. Where do you live? Jason asked again. I turned my face away and gave him my address. The car started. Neither of us spoke. The silence was so heavy, I could hear our breaths, the faint sound of his fingers tapping the steering wheel. Not until I stepped out did he finally speak. Why did you break up with me so suddenly back then? I looked at him and let out a bitter laugh. What else was I supposed to do, be your mistress? Without waiting for his reaction, I slammed the door and stormed off, making sure the loud bang conveyed my fury. Jason quickly opened his door and chased after me. He grabbed my wrist, but I yanked free. Goodbye, Jason. For a fleeting second, I felt disoriented. My heart thudded wildly in my chest. I still liked him. That was a fact I couldn't deny. But as I'd said before, I couldn't allow myself to think of him anymore. I could never be the other woman. Our breakup had been abrupt. I was a freshman then, and Jason a junior. Not long after we started dating, he went off for an internship. He was busy, but I never knew what exactly he was busy with. And, however, would tell me things. She was 1 year ahead of me. She asked me to meet her at a cafe, ironically, the very cafe where Jason and I had first made things official. I sat down, politely greeting her the way Jane always did. Normally, she and I had little direct interaction, though we saw each other often enough to exchange greetings. She nodded back, but her eyes were cold, detached, an expression I had never seen on her before. The Anne I knew had always seemed like a gentle older sister. That day, her look unsettled me. I sat nervously, waiting for her to speak. She turned away, reached into her bag, and placed a bank card on the table. There's 1,000,000 yuan on this card. From Mrs. Gu. For you, and said. Those few words crashed through my mind like a thunderclap. What do you mean? I asked. And gave a mocking smile. You're with Jason for money, aren't you? I don't understand. She studied my confused expression, then sneered again. This act of yours, playing dumb, might fool Jason, but not me. She pushed the card closer. Take it. The Gu family will never accept you. Even if you cling to him shamelessly, you'll never get more than this. Her words were blunt, even cruel. I was too stunned to react. I don't understand what you're talking about, I said. And I don't understand what you're pretending at, and retorted. You're not seriously going to say you didn't know Jason comes from a powerful family, are you? I froze. Then suddenly, her strange words from earlier fell into place. Such a melodramatic scene, and it was happening to me. I didn't have time to decide whether to be angry at Jason for hiding his identity from me, or secretly pleased that I had fallen for someone rich. I looked straight at Anne, my gaze unwavering. I truly didn't know. You should know better than anyone how low-key those siblings are, I said. But Anne refused to listen. In her eyes, I was nothing more than a schemer. Strictly speaking, I didn't owe her any explanation, but I hated being misunderstood. I'm with Jason simply because I like him. And he likes me. No matter how long we last, or whether we make it to the end, I don't care. What matters is the present, this person standing before me. What we've shared has been beautiful. That's enough for me. And listened, then gave a cold laugh. Her only comment was, pretending. Think what you want, I replied calmly. But that's the reason I was with Jason. With that, I turned to leave. But Anne's voice stopped me. You're sure you won't leave him? Without looking back, I answered, I'm sure. Even if I have to be the other woman. What? She said sharply. She leaned back in her chair, crossed one leg over the other, and fixed me with a contemptuous stare, half mockery, half condescension. Then let me be honest with you, Salma. Jason will only ever marry me. My mind went blank. I didn't know what to say. I just listened as she continued, her tone full of pride. She spoke of how she and Jason were childhood sweethearts, how their families were perfectly matched, a union made in heaven. She said she was adored by the Gu elders, and that she and Jason had been promised to each other before birth. Suddenly, my earlier words felt laughable. I was overwhelmed, lost. Instinctively, I grabbed my bag, turned, and tried to flee, and picked up the bank card from the table and threw it at me. She looked down her nose at me, her arrogance unshaken. Take the money and leave. Shame burned across my face. My skin was on fire. I didn't pick up the card. Instead, forcing myself to remain composed, I walked out of the cafe. That night, I broke up with Jason. I swore I would never appear before him again. Because of Jane, my roommate, I didn't dare cry. I couldn't even force a smile. I just carried an expressionless face all day long, as if the world owed me millions. Jane asked me why I broke up. I believed she wasn't hiding anything from me. I also believed she hadn't known and had come to see me. So I told her nothing, just said, I don't like Jason anymore. She looked more upset than I was, but she never asked again. Jason was busy with his internship, and I deliberately avoided him. Even when he tried to find me, I refused to speak. I thought Jason was a bastard too, for hiding his identity, for hiding Anne. I had no desire to hear his explanations. Later, he graduated. And we lost all contact. Now, in the present, Jason gripped my wrist with one hand and forced my face toward him with the other, making me meet his eyes. What did you mean by that? He demanded. Unable to dodge, I stared back stubbornly. I said I won't be your mistress. His brows knit together. Are you sick? His expression suggested he thought I was insane. I suddenly felt drained. Mr. Gu, I said coldly, my voice detached and tinged with resignation. I don't know what rules you rich people live by. But I think, at the very least, you should treat me like a human being. I lifted my head, locking eyes with him. I thought you truly loved me back then. Jason's frown deepened. Then, freeing one hand, he touched my forehead as if checking for fever. You're rambling nonsense. I can't understand a word you're saying. The confusion in his voice didn't sound fake. That startled me. We stared at each other, both suddenly wide-eyed. Did someone say something to you? Jason asked. I nodded. But before telling him about Anne, I wanted to confirm something else. Otherwise, it would sound like baseless accusation. Did your family know we were dating? I asked. Jason hesitated, then shook his head. My face hardened. That confirmed it, it had been Anne's doing. Seeing my expression, Jason rushed to explain. Back then, we'd only been together less than half a year. I thought we should date longer, wait until it was stable, before telling my family. I wasn't planning to hide you forever. I cut him off. It was Anne. What? Jason froze. I took a deep breath and told him everything about Anne confronting me at the cafe. He fell silent for a long time before saying, my mother would never do something like that. And even if she did, our family would never just offer a mere $1 million. That money must have been Anne's own. I slapped my thigh in frustration. Damn it. If I'd known it was her money, I should have taken it. Jason caught my hand, gently rubbing the spot I'd reddened. As for childhood sweethearts, sure, we grew up together. But I don't like her. He paused, then added, however, the arranged engagement and the elders' approval, that part is true. I froze. Jason studied my expression, then suddenly chuckled. So it wasn't that you fell out of love with me. You liked me all along. Otherwise, why are you reacting like this? My face turned crimson. He continued, that engagement was just a joke. This isn't ancient times, who cares about such things? Grandfather does like her, but that's just old-fashioned thinking. He feels the Guan and families are close, so the younger generation should marry. But he can't control me. Though I didn't want to admit it, a flicker of joy stirred in my chest. Outwardly, however, I remained cold. I've always been stubborn like that. Jason smiled at me. Keep pretending, then. He leaned back against the car. Go on. Rest well. I gave him one last glance before walking into my building. At the entrance, I couldn't resist turning back. And? How do you plan to deal with her? I asked, my gaze sharp. If he intended to protect Anne, I would cut ties for good. I wasn't capable of revenge against him, nor could I fight Anne. The only thing I could do was leave them both behind. Jason's expression grew serious. Wait, was all he said. I said nothing more. After one last look, I went upstairs. In my room, I walked to the window and peered down. Jason was still there. He noticed me, lifted his hand in a wave. I didn't respond. Instead, I drew the curtains. After my shower, I lay on the bed. My phone buzzed, it was a message from Jane. My brother asked me for your contact information. I told him I could give it, but I need to ask you first. Do you want me to? Back then, in order to avoid Jason, I had changed my number and all my social accounts. I had told Jane never to give him my contact, never to get involved. She agreed, and she kept her word. Of course, Jason and I still had mutual friends. But I knew he wouldn't ask them. We all valued appearances too much. Even if he could lower himself, he'd still consider my dignity. And so, our breakup had been calm. He wanted to fix things, but I only kept running away. In the end, he didn't chase me too hard. The last message he ever sent me was, "We'll get another chance to talk, properly." Perhaps now, perhaps this moment, was that very chance. I thought for a long while before finally sending him a short reply, Not even a minute later, Jason's friend request popped up. His first message, right after I accepted, was simple, "Good night." I replied with the same words, "Good night." After waiting a while with no further response, I was just about to go to sleep when his next message arrived, "Come to GU Corporation tomorrow to report in." I stared at my phone, not answering. When I graduated, I had actually wanted to join GU Corporation, but in order to avoid suspicion, I hadn't sent in an application. Jane had found out and even advised me, don't mix relationships with work. After thinking it over for a long time, I still sent in my resume to GU Corporation, but it hadn't gone through. As expected. I hadn't planned on changing jobs anyway. So I replied to him, "My current job might not compare to GU Corporation, but it's 9 to 5, weekends off, insurance, and $20,000 a month. That's already rare enough." Then I added, "Besides, when I applied back then, my resume didn't get accepted." "It would've," Jason replied. "But unsuppressed it. When I saw it later, recruitment had already closed. I asked someone to contact you, but you never replied." Reading his explanation, I remembered. After GU Corporation rejected me, I had gone to interview with my current company. When the GU offer came later, I thought it was a joke and ignored it. Now, even faced with another invitation, I still didn't agree. No matter what, joining GU Corporation now would be walking through the back door, and I didn't want that. "Forget it, Mr. GU," I replied, my tone still restrained. "My current company suits me fine. The past should stay in the past." Jason seemed impatient. He called directly. I hesitated, then picked up. "Salma." He called my name, then fell silent, as if even he didn't know why he'd made the call. He knew I wouldn't go to GU Corporation. After a pause, he said softly, "Salma, if there had never been and, wouldn't we already be married?" I stared at my painted nails, silent for a while, then replied, "Mr. GU, there are no ifs in this world." Jason's voice sounded heavy with disappointment. He hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, I went to work as usual. Suddenly, my boss called me in. There was a new project, he said, and the client had specifically requested me. I took the folder, only to see two bold characters on the cover, GU Corporation. I immediately handed it back. "Sorry, I can't take this one." My boss frowned and began to pressure me. I had no choice but to accept. In the adult world, there is no such thing as doing whatever you please. Just like how I wanted to keep my distance from Jason, yet he always found a way to pull me back. Just like how I hated Anne, yet there was nothing I could do about her. I was just an ordinary person, powerless against the two of them. So I pulled myself together and went to GU Corporation. The receptionist, as if expecting me, took me straight to the president's office. "Mr. GU gave instructions, he wants to speak to you personally." I nodded and walked in. Before Jason could say anything, I spoke first. "Mr. GU, we're only here to discuss work." Jason was momentarily choked off. "All right," he said. Then, unwilling to give up, he added, "But let's have dinner together tonight." I looked at him. For some reason, the tension inside me eased. I nodded. The project itself went smoothly. Originally, Jane had been supposed to handle the liaison with me. But Anne stepped in, claiming Jane lacked ability, that our relationship was too close and would harm the company's interests. Jason listened quietly, then after a pause, gave me a look. "Then Anne will handle it." And accepted, satisfied, and left. Jane whispered to me on her way out, "Be careful of Anne. She likes my brother too." Then she left, giving us space. Jason grabbed his jacket. "Come on, let's go eat." I nodded and followed him to the parking lot. Once in the car, as he started the engine, he said, "I've given you a chance. Make the most of it." I blinked, confused. "What chance?" He turned his head toward me. "A chance to deal with Anne." My mood soured. "Do you think I'd stoop to petty revenge?" Jason shook his head. "Not you." "Me? What?" I asked in surprise. He started driving, eyes on the road. His voice was light. "I can't let Anne stay in the company anymore. Forget about your resume. Just a few days ago, she deliberately altered Jane's contract, then swooped in to fix it herself. Hurting others while benefiting herself. Her mind isn't on work at all. But with grandfather protecting her, unless something big happens, she can't be pushed out easily. So you want to use me as the knife? I asked. I didn't like being used. He shook his head again. I know you. You wouldn't do something like that. I was puzzled. But and would, he added. She won't target you the way she did Jane. She'll trip you up in the details. And I believe you'll handle it, and fight for your company's best interests. Of course, if she behaves, then there'll be nothing to worry about. I nodded. I understood his meaning. He wasn't asking me to strike in, only to do my part and stay sharp. Once the talk of work ended, the topic shifted to us. Salma, back then, we didn't fight. We just let someone stir things up between us. And so? I asked. So do we still have a chance? The moment he said it, my heart skipped a beat. I wanted to say yes. But I had my hesitations. Back in college, I could claim I just wanted a relationship. But now, at 26, dating inevitably meant marriage. And how could Jason and I marry? The truth was harsh, we weren't from the same world. Dating was between two people, marriage was between two families. I didn't want a union without both families' blessing. Do you just want to date me? I asked Jason. He didn't hesitate. He nodded. Of course. And I want to marry you too. Marriage? I murmured. Impossible. Why impossible? He asked. I gave it to him straight. Your parents would never accept their son marrying an ordinary woman. Jason raised a brow. You do think a lot. Then he suddenly turned the car around. Fine. I'll take you to meet them. He gave me no chance to refuse. Just like that, we drove straight to his parents' house. At first, I resisted. But right then, Mrs. Gu was watering flowers by the doorway. She spotted us instantly. Jason, you're back, she said warmly, walking over. Her eyes swept over me from head to toe. So this is Salma, isn't it? Jason and Jane often mention you. Then, with a broad smile, she added, come inside, come inside. The moment we entered, she told the housekeeper to prepare more dishes, even asked about my food preferences, and later went into the kitchen herself to wash fruit for me. You see, this is your first time here, and I didn't even prepare a gift, she said as she slipped a jade bracelet from her wrist. Here, take this. I hurried to refuse, but Jason had already taken the bracelet and slipped it onto my wrist. Smiling cheekily, he said, thanks, Mom. Then he winked at me. All I could do was murmur, thank you, Auntie. Mrs. Gu studied the two of us, then suddenly said, Jason, go fetch your father. Jason went out. Mrs. Gu leaned closer to me, her voice lowered. You two still haven't made up, have you? Her face carried no judgment of a mother-in-law, only a gleam of gossiping curiosity. What exactly did Jason say? I asked cautiously. Cracking sunflower seeds she'd picked up from somewhere, Mrs. Gu replied, he said he's still chasing after you. She poured a handful of seeds into my palm. Listen, let me tell you, Jason's a good one. He's got money, good looks, and he's devoted to you. Give Auntie some face, take him back, This was a scene I had never imagined. Auntie. But she cut me off, smiling. You've met the parents already, you've accepted the bracelet. Auntie will take it as a sign, you two are back together. Have you thought about when to marry? Just then Jason came back in. Not yet, he answered quickly. But soon. He jingled the car keys in his hand, signaling that he'd forgotten them earlier and had only come back to fetch them. I shot him a glare. He shrugged, then slipped out again. Mrs. Gu rolled her eyes at him and turned back to me. Don't mind him. Now tell me honestly, what do you think? I lowered my gaze. Auntie, I haven't decided yet whether I want to be with him. Mrs. Gu froze for a second. Why not? I didn't know what to say. She held my hand gently. Your relationship is for the two of you to figure out. His father and I won't interfere too much. If you're serious in planning marriage, we'll help you prepare. As for feelings, that's not something we can control. Her words were clear, she respected me, she respected the bond between Jason and me, and she supported us. This video is an original work of the YouTube channel Romance Grove and is published exclusively on this channel. Please don't re-upload or share it on other channels. Mr. Gu was a quiet man, but I could see he was making an effort to talk to me. Jason's parents were nothing like what I had imagined. After dinner, Jason drove me home. In the car, he asked, still holding on to your old thoughts? I shook my head. He didn't ask if I'd take him back. Instead, he said softly, I'll wait. I'll wait until you've thought it through. Until you've tested me properly. I gave a small sound of assent, not a direct answer, but it was clear things between us had shifted. I no longer resisted his nearness. Our daily interactions grew more intimate, sometimes even slipping into casual pet names, baby. Yet, I hadn't accepted Jason's request to reconcile. There was still a thorn in my heart. And life went on, regardless of feelings. I continued liaising with her on the project. Got time? Want to grab a meal together? And asked after we finished talking work. Sure, I agreed at once. I wanted to see what she had to say this time. Would she try to drive a wedge between Jason and me again, like she had in college? But before I could answer properly, an arm suddenly wrapped around my shoulders, pulling me firmly into an embrace. It was Jason. He drew me close and said curtly, "She's not going." I glanced back at Anne. Her face showed obvious discomfort. Jason bent down, whispering against my ear, "Off to eat with her again? Listen to her nonsense again? Then leave me again?" I frowned and gave him a small punch. "What are you talking about? I was just curious." "Curiosity isn't allowed." Jason cut me off sharply. "You'll only end up believing her and leaving me again." I wanted to say, I wouldn't. But thinking back on the past, guilt pricked at me. So instead, I changed the subject. "You're right. And is trying to sabotage us again. That material? The best choice is clearly domestic, it's high quality and cheap. But she keeps insisting on that foreign supplier." Jason looked at me. "Guess who owns that company?" "The Yin family," I said. He nodded. "She wants us to bear the cost of the raw materials. But of course, we'll never agree, the profit's too small." Jason nodded again. "As long as you protect your company's interests, that's all that matters." I tilted my chin up. "Naturally." Jason chuckled, his hand ruffling my hair affectionately. I lowered my head again, still uneasy. "So what do you plan to do with Anne?" "She's damaging the company's interests." "She'll be fired," Jason said simply. "Doesn't the Yin family hold shares?" I asked. "They do. But those are the Yin family's shares, not hers. If they insist on using them to threaten us, they can stay shareholders forever," Jason said indifferently. I nodded slowly. "Salma." Jason called my name. I looked up. "When Anne is dealt with, will you be with me?" His eyes were serious. I hesitated, then finally nodded. "I will. The only things holding me back were Anne, and your parents' opinion. But that's resolved now. Once Anne is too, I have no reason to refuse you. Because I loved him. From beginning to end. In the end, our company's collaboration fell apart, precisely because of the raw material dispute. Jason said he'd be busy for a while. I knew what that meant, he was preparing to deal with Anne. During those days, Jane, unusually free, clung to me often. One evening after work, she dragged me shopping. Exhausted, I finally snapped, "Jane, I'm dead tired after a whole day at work. I can't walk anymore." She looked embarrassed. "But..." I fixed my eyes on her, waiting for the rest. "But my brother said, when he's not around, I need to keep you company. And, absolutely don't let Anne get close to you." Her choice of words struck me. Today, she hadn't called Anne sis. Why not call her that anymore? I asked lightly. Jane pouted. "I used to treat her like a sister. But she treated me like an idiot. That last contract mess? She set me up." Her indignation spilled out. When I didn't react much, she gaped at me. "You already knew, didn't you?" I nodded. "And you didn't tell me?" Jane pretended to be angry, punching me lightly. "If I said it out loud, wouldn't it sound like I was trying to stir up trouble?" I didn't reply. Instead, I asked, "What does your brother plan to do with Anne?" Jane shook her head. "Probably just kick her out of the company. But I doubt he'll make things too ugly with the Yin family. After all, the families have been close for generations." I nodded again. From an emotional standpoint, I was a little disappointed, but I could understand. Suddenly Jane grabbed my hand. "You should get back together with my brother. That's why he asked me to stay close to you, right?" She stuck out her tongue playfully. "See? You figured it out." I quickly changed the subject, steering us away from it. But in my heart, I knew, Jason and I needed a proper ending. After a month of busyness, Jason finally appeared. He asked me out to dinner, his hair carefully styled, wearing a tailored suit. "Showing off like a peacock," I teased. He arched a brow but, unusually, didn't argue back. "Get in the car. I'll take you to dinner," Jason said. He always seemed to have an obsession with meals together. I didn't dwell on it and got in. But when we arrived at the restaurant, I sensed something was off. Jason had taken me out to eat many times, but never to such a high-end place. Not because he was stingy, but because I had once told him that dining in restaurants like this made me feel pressured, that stepping in without full makeup felt like desecrating the place. From then on, he had rarely brought me anywhere like this. At the table, he casually bragged. "Not only did I kick Anne out of the company, I also exposed her misdeeds to the family. She's lost face completely. I even used it to pressure her into going abroad. After all, what she did couldn't see the light of day." I even reclaimed part of the in-family shares. Then, with an air of indifference, he added, if I said it was all for you, you probably wouldn't believe me. But most of it was. I knew what he wanted, not to boast of his sacrifices, but to hear me praise him. I smiled, lips curving. Well then, thank you, big brother. You're my favorite. Jason looked stunned, then let out a low laugh. What, don't know how to give compliments anymore? Back when you were chasing me, you never stopped. I used to say the same things. But now, when I say it, it just sounds strange. Probably because I'm older now, huh? I put on a hurt expression. No, Jason quickly denied it, flustered, about to explain, only to catch me secretly laughing. With a sigh, he let it go. When the meal was nearly over, I dabbed my lips with a napkin. Jason's gaze was unusually tense. Wait, he blurted. There's still dessert. He sounded both anxious and flustered. Soon after, the waiter arrived, carrying a small cake. When the waiter left, I stared at the cake in silence. I'd never liked sweets, and Jason knew that. I lifted my eyes at him, he was watching me nervously. Eat, he urged clumsily, words tumbling out. I lowered my head, picked up the fork, and stabbed the cake until it was a mess. Then, from within, I lifted out the ring hidden inside. Jason froze, caught red-handed. This cliché of a proposal, you actually thought of this? I teased, taking a napkin to wipe the cream off the ring before handing it back to him. Then I extended my hand toward him. While he was still stunned, I said softly, I do. Looking at the ring on my hand, I finally smiled. After all the storms, after all the doubts, I chose to trust again. Love isn't about wealth or promises, it's about two hearts daring to stay. This time, I'll hold Jason's hand and walk forward without fear,